To me, taking the leap is it's about overcoming fear, right? That's the whole point of standing at the edge and deciding whether or not you're going to make that jump, right? Be it literally or figuratively. I'm going to talk about it literally. So, in summer of 2010, my son and I, he's about 11 years old, we were at a water park, and we'd been there all day, and we'd been on all the slides except for the one that was at the very top, right? So we climb up the 4 stories, or whatever it is, to get to this water slide. And there's 3 slides there. There's one on the right, there's one on the left, there's one right down the middle. And there was nobody at the park that day. It had rained earlier, so it was just kind of a small group of people. And I'm standing on the right, and he's standing on the left. And it's one of those slides where you actually lose contact with the slide when you go over, right? It's like really steep, right? So we're standing at the edge, and we're looking at it. And I look over at him, and he's nervous, and I'm like, So I turn to him and I say, we don't have to do this, right? We can go back. And just as I say this, a 6-year-old comes up, grabs the bar in the center one, and throws himself down as fast as he can. Right? And I said, well, shit, we got to do it now. 6-year-old's going to do it, right? So we do it, and we survive. And afterwards, I realize that there's a life lesson there, right? Don't let irrational fear stop you from doing something that might be fun or rewarding. Fast forward to this past December, my wife and I had the opportunity to go to Hawaii for the first time. And it was amazing and it was beautiful. And on our very first day, we were on the Big Island, which is the southernmost island, and we went to the southernmost point of that island, which is literally called the end of the world. And we get to the park, and we drove our kind of rental Jeep down, and there's a bunch of people there, and there's these young guys that are there, and they look like they just walked up the cover of a surfer magazine, right? They're ripped and they're perfect tans, and I am none of those things, right? So, and they're kind of hanging around, and I see that there's a cliff there, and there's some people jumping off of this cliff and into the water. And I walk over to the edge, and I'm looking at it, and I look down, and I realize that it's about 25, 30 feet down to the water, and the underside of the ledge has kind of given way, right? So there's a cave that's directly underneath where this ledge is. So you can jump here and not worry about the water slamming up against the rocks, right? So I'm looking at this, and I'm kind of doing a cost-benefit analysis, right? Trying to figure out whether or not this is a good idea. And I look over to the left, and there's 2 ladders there, and it looks, people are climbing up and down, and it seems to be okay. And I'm standing there trying to make a decision, and I'm on the fence, and finally what I thought was, damn it, you're in Hawaii. You have the opportunity to go cliff diving in Hawaii. When are you ever going to have this chance again, right? So I'm like, shit, all right, here we go. So I'm standing on the edge, and there's these 2 Russian guys that are standing there, neither of which had the courage to jump, by the way, but they're goading me to do it. And as I'm standing at the edge, trying to decide whether or not I'm going to do it, this older guy comes climbing up the ladder, and he kind of walks away, and one of the dudes says, I talked to that guy earlier, he's 70 years old. Well, shit, now I gotta do it, right? So here we go. So my wife is now started recording for insurance purposes. And I'm standing at the edge, and I'm kind of looking, and I'm like, okay, there's nobody down there, and there's nobody, around me or whatever. So I take a deep breath, and I jump, right? And I was in the air for an hour and a half. And I hit the water, and the water was just a little bit cooler than the ambient air, so it wasn't like it was a big shock, but it was, and I went probably 400 feet down in the water, and it was, I was like, oh crap. And I swim back up to the top. And now I'm in the Pacific Ocean, right? South of any place else in the United States. I'm literally just jumped off the end of the world. And this is high adventure, right? This is what I came here for, right? So I'm feeling great. And I give out this victory yell, woohoo! And I scare the shit out of some people that were hanging out of the cave. And I'm like, okay, so now I need to head back to the ladder. So I swim over to the ladder. And now the jump was about 25 or 30 feet, but the ladder is 200 feet high. And it seems that way, but it's clearly only the 30 feet. But I realize now that the ladder is actually 3 ladders that are roped together. They're metal, and they're swinging with the waves. Oh shit! So I start to climb this thing, and I thought, well, how hard could it be? It's only 25, 30 feet ladder. I can do this. So I start climbing, And I get about halfway up, and I realize that I'm exhausted, right? I'm exhausted. And I look down, and I can see that there's, the water's still there. And I look over to the right, and it's about a half a mile to the closest place that I can climb up. And I look to the left, and it's about 3/4 of a mile to the closest place I can get to the shore. So it's either this ladder, or I'm dying here. So step by step, I get up this ladder. And I get to the top, and I feel like I've been on this ladder for an hour and a half. But I finally get up to the top. By the way, the other ladder, people climb it up. But I get to the top, and everything's okay, but I'm completely gassed, I'm completely winded. And I said to myself, I would do this again, but not today. But as I get to the top, and I'm kind of catching my breath, this older guy that had done the jump before is standing at the edge of this hole that had formed. When I was down in the water, I looked into that cave, and I could see daylight at the end of that cave. What had happened is over the years, as the water continued to crash in, this cave had given way, and there was this kind of a sinkhole that led down to this water, right? And it was still 25, 30 feet down to this water. And all these kind of surfer guys are kind of hanging around this spot, and that's kind of what they're doing. But this older guy is standing at the edge of this hole. And I walk up, and I'm standing about 10 or 15 feet away from him, and I look down into the hole. And it's, again, 25, 30 feet down. But the gap that he's eyeballing is about 4.5 feet wide. And he's standing there, and I realize that something serious is happening because all these little surfer guys start pulling out their phones. Right? Now they're videoing this old dude standing there, and he's leaning over the edge. He's looking, and he's completely unaware of anybody else. He's completely focused on what he's doing. Finally, after like 5 or 6 minutes of this, he looks up and he realizes that there's a bunch of people watching. And he turns around to his wife, who was standing there, who she was watching him, but she didn't seem terribly concerned. And he says to her, "The tide's not high enough. I need to come back in about an hour, and I'll do it then." And so to me, it was another lesson about fear, right? The enemy of fear is information. I was standing at the top of that slide with my son. I watched this 6-year-old jump down there and prove to us that it was safe, right? I stood at the edge of that cliff, and I saw other people do it. And I thought, I can make this choice and I can do it. Now, I should have thought a little bit more about that fucking ladder. But I'd certainly made the jump. But this older man, as he stood there, he had the information necessary to make the right choice. So to me, what I'm looking for out of every decision is that decision based on fear, or is it based on information? And that's the thing that makes me take the leap or not.